There's a few other terms in the medical legal chapter that I wanted us to go over so everyone in class will be clear. The term abandonment. So once we have begun patient care, we have to continue patient care until either no further care is needed, the patient wants to sign a refusal, or we turn care over to someone else who is competent to care for that patient. And generally we think of that as someone who is an equal level of care or higher. So as an EMT, if you're taking care of a patient and a paramedic arrives on scene, you can turn patient care over to the paramedic because that's considered a higher level of care. At the hospital, when we turn them over to an RN, that's also considered an equal or higher level of care. So we want to continue patient care until we turn patient care over to someone that can care for them, that is an equal or higher level than we are. There's also those two other ones, so maybe there's no further care needed, and then the refusal. Now the no further care needed is not something we run into in EMS too much, but the refusal is, and I'll do another video on what we should do when we have a refusal. We mentioned assault and battery in class, and I want you to remember that assault is just a threat. They don't have to actually have physical contact, and the threat also has to have the means of being carried out. So the threat has to be there. Like if I say I'm gonna come to your house and beat in your door, I have to actually know where you live, know how to get there, could actually beat in your door. So if those things don't exist, then there could not be a threat. So you have to somehow express that you're going to hurt someone, and then they have to also believe that that is a possibility. If Mike Tyson calls you and says he's coming to your house to beat you up tonight, that's probably not very likely, and I wouldn't really consider that an assault. Now, battery is when you actually touch someone without their permission, and we have to get permission, I have to get consent for anybody that is in their right mind before we begin touching them. And we have to touch them to check pulses and assess them. So that is something that we have to get. We have to get that consent. Otherwise, if we touch them without their permission, it could be considered battery. Now, in general in EMS, if your intent is obvious and they don't say no, we're generally going to be okay. So if you're talking to your patient and you start to reach down to their wrist like you're going to check their pulse, and they don't pull back from you, you're generally okay. Now, if they do start to pull back from you, then obviously stop, make sure they have a little bit of distance, figure out why they didn't want you to touch them, ask for permission again, explain what you're going to do, that you're going to check their pulse. But usually we can get away. So if I hold up a blood pressure cuff and I reach for your arm, it's usually obvious I'm going to get a blood pressure on you, and if the patient doesn't say no, we generally can do that without having to ask for every single little thing that we're going to do. If you want to be completely covered, you can do that. You can ask, I want to check your pulse, I want to check your blood pressure, I want to put a pulse ox on your finger, I want to listen to your lungs. It's not bad to do that, but we generally don't have to ask for every single little thing as long as there doesn't seem to be any discomfort or they seem to say no. False imprisonment or kidnapping, they kind of go hand in hand. We cannot take a patient against their will unless they're an altered mental status or not in the right mind, like they're a threat to themselves. And so if they're suicidal or a threat to themselves, then we can get online medical direction to issue the order, and we can go ahead and take them. Generally involve law enforcement with that, because there's probably going to be a little bit of a tussle. Try to convince them to go with you. But in general, if somebody doesn't want to go to a hospital or doesn't want to go with you, you can't make them go. Or if they want to go to hospital A, you can't take them to hospital B without their permission, even if hospital B might be a better hospital for them. Now we're going to advise them what would be the best hospital to go to, which one can best care for what we think is wrong with them, but if they still want to go to hospital A, we will have to take them to hospital A. If we take them to hospital B without their permission, that would be kidnapping and false imprisonment. The last concept I want to mention is slander and libel or defamation. So if you knowingly say or release information that is harmful to the person, their reputation, it's embarrassing to them, and it generally is false, that could be slander and libel. Now, slander is generally when we have spoken something bad against someone that is not true, and libel is when we have written something that is not true, that is harmful to them, again, their reputation usually, or is embarrassing to them. So it's best just to not say bad things about people, and then you don't have to worry about slander and libel. So just a few other terms that you find in your medical legal chapter of your EMT class. Hope this helps.